We're now going to hear about establishing this new national laboratory from its director, Michael Cuthbert. So, over to you.
Thanks very much indeed. Good afternoon. So, thanks to The Economist and all the organisers of the conference. I actually think if we go back to think about the origins of the national programme in the UK, very much about translating technology out of the lab, seeking to commercialise the technology and the excellent scientific research around the UK, and then identify the applications that we could take that to market. And I think it's a real measure of the success of that programme dating back to 2014. When you look around the room today and see the diversity of industry, of business people, of investors, of researchers, and the tech developers. And so it's really exciting to see a growing and a new audience engaging in quantum computing. The Minister mentioned some of the metrics I have up here. I think what I would just like to comment, and the UK has a particularly strong quantum computing sector here, in that we have the end user community that many of you are in and begin to try and understand applications and seek new opportunities. We've got the startups and the tech developer space, but we've also got a very strong supply chain. And that's not something that all countries in this sector can say. So it builds on the photonics industry, the cryogenics, the laser systems, RF componentry as well. So we're in a very strong place and the opportunity to progress further. So let me just say something about the purpose of the National Quantum Computing Centre. So it's really about addressing this challenge of scaling. How do we scale up the technology, not just the hardware, but how do we scale up the user community who will engage with quantum computing as the technology develops? We seek to provide assurance. So who is the trusted voice on quantum computing? How do we benchmark and verify the performance of quantum computers as they develop? And who can provide impartial advice within government on the applications of quantum computing? I've mentioned the supply chain. We want to focus development, enhance skills, which many people have mentioned already today. Look at accelerating scaling, as I've mentioned, and user adoption. So I wanted to just touch on the three key areas that we've been working on since establishing the centre. Technology readiness, so looking particularly at how we progress towards a NISC-era 100-qubit plus machine to be hosted at Harwell for access for the user community. We started work focusing on superconducting qubits and trapped ions as the first stage, not because we think they are ultimately going to be the winning platforms, but because they're the most mature at the starting point and an area to initially prioritize. We keep a watching brief on the other technology platforms as they're developing, and we're seeking to fold those into our technical program as they develop. On infrastructure readiness, big focus of our effort over the last year and a half has been the design planning of the new facility. This is the first investment into bricks and mortar within the UK national programme. We want to make sure that it is fit for purpose and that it is a real flagship facility for the UK programme, but it's not just about the building, and that we want to ensure that it's also the people and the resources that go into that building. Construction has now started, and we're due for handover next summer. And then finally on workforce readiness, and this is where we've been focusing a lot of our effort most recently in understanding where are the use cases, the opportunities in application space, and how do we grow that user community and provide access to training and skills in order for that user community to become effective. So let me say just a little more in detail in the technology readiness. And I wanted to pick out a couple of things in particular because we're not trying to do this alone. And we recognize that there'll be some internal development effort, collaboration with others, and procurement, and acting as for a government procurement. On the development side, our trapped ions program is already quite well advanced, building on some work that was done within the Quantum Computing Simulation Hub in Oxford, and focusing on a rapid device turnaround on calcium ions in a cryogenic vacuum environment. On collaboration, we've got two major programs now up and running, one led by the University of Glasgow on some underpinning technology, so cryo-CMOS, thinking about control architectures for the future, not just at the qubit layer. And then also the Q Pharma collaboration led by one of the UK startups, Seek. And that's really working across high-performance compute, quantum computing, and the pharmaceutical industry to understand how existing high-performance compute tools like ChemShell can be used and developed and enhanced by adding in quantum compute for particular problems within the pharma industry. On procurement, we've already run a number of technology work packages on benchmarking, open standards, use case development, and industrial proof of concepts, and awards have already been made to a number of our UK companies, Riverlane, National Physical Laboratory, Phasecraft, Duality, Orca, and ControlOx. And we will be planning to do many more of these and some grand challenges, working with other agencies across government, because we see it's really important that government can de-risk the industrial sector as these companies grow, that it's not all about grant funding. Grant funding has its place. Working with the academic sector also has its place and is important, but we recognize that actually companies need to learn how to deliver a product or a service. They need to learn how to interact with their customer to meet a specification and a deadline. And also we want to put revenue into some of the startups and not just a grant funding. So we'll be looking to do quite a bit more of this over the coming years. On infrastructure, we said opportunity for development, then thinking over time about more of a production environment. So as the technology matures, then we can actually move to the point of hosting prototype devices, having test bed facilities. What we don't want to do is to nationalize the delivery of quantum computing for the UK. We want to support and nurture that and make sure that we can facilitate the delivery of quantum compute resources for UK users, both in research and in industry, but we want to make sure that it's the companies that are flourishing and that we can help them do that. And then on innovation, we've already started, as we've been building the facility, looking into a secondary lab space that we think we can accelerate the technology program by about a year by bringing forward more modest lab space that we can access over this coming summer rather than waiting for the building to be ready, and that we can really start to pick up the pace on this technology translation program. One of the things that we've got is, at the moment, is an open call for chief scientist, and this is in collaboration with EPSRC, the Funding Council, and this is looking at somebody who can really lead on algorithms, application development, and theory, something that we think sits much better in the academic environment rather than within a national laboratory. So this will be a partnership program over the next 3 years with substantial support for postdocs and PhD students, and not just for that one individual. And then in workforce readiness, skills, we've already awarded 3 technology fellowships for early career researchers. Student secondments and joint positions underway. And in fact, on Monday this week, quantum information, a course began with the University of Bristol that we've been doing in collaboration with them. And then the Minister mentioned that we've really started working on quantum readiness and thinking about how we focus on applications discovery, how we take quantum computing out into industry to explore use cases and to understand the opportunities. And we've been working with Oxford Quantum Circuits in support of this to access their early machines, UK hardware for UK users to start to explore some of these early problems. So what do we mean by quantum readiness? Well, it's about taking people through a journey from awareness to advocacy so that they really understand what are the opportunities that come from quantum computing. We heard this morning there's a challenge of some problems are just not suitable for quantum computing. So how do we target the right problems? How do we engage with people? How do we evaluate their business case? How do we understand both the threat and opportunity from quantum computing? How can we support industry and support companies starting to take action? So what is it that they need to do to access quantum computing technology? What do they need to do to translate the problems in their domain space into the language of the computing scientists in order to start coding machines? And there's nothing like writing some real code of your own to actually learn in that process of how you tackle these challenges. So this program will be kicking off formally next week, and there are still a few places available if people are interested in joining us. So it's really about access to compute resource, technical support, applications development, skills and training. It was interesting to note in some of the discussions earlier on today about skills and training, and I was reflecting that amongst the 40-plus startups in the UK, together they hired more people in the last 12 months than the UK's national programme produced PhD students in the first 5 years. So skills and training is going to be a huge bottleneck in everything that we do, but actually everything that you are seeking to do as well. So that's something that we need to make sure that we're not just focusing on more PhD students, but also making sure that we bring through skilled people, enable them to retrain, get into quantum computing, get into quantum technologies, and recognize all the engineering skills that we need to progress. We've done quite a bit of work, and this is a case study in the financial services industry, so working across government, working with the regulators, with the tech developers, some of the big financial institutions, with academia, in trying to explore what are the type of problems we need to be thinking about, what are the type of problems that people are already working on in financial services, where are the problems that are about competitive advantage for individual organizations, and where are the structural problems that we can actually collaborate and share best practice. And it seems that the early wins are going to be in those collaborative type of projects where we can come together as a sector and progress. So just to conclude, quantum computing roadmap, it's long, it's complex, it's extremely challenging. And for me, collaborations and partnerships are an absolutely vital part of what we do and how we continue to build this community. Our program is going to be centered on technology, infrastructure, and workforce readiness. And we're already starting to scale up the organization to meet those challenges. And we're seeking to accelerate the program with a growing emphasis on applications, discovery, and quantum readiness. I put up this roadmap. It's a very simplified picture, and I'm sure people will have their own views on exactly how the pieces fit together. But for me, the critical thing is that value is achieved throughout the roadmap and not at the end. And so that's where we are seeking to really work hard on this application use case development to find the value that ultimately industry will adopt quantum computing and it not be just a scientific curiosity over the next 2 decades. And finally, we've got a great team. We are growing, and we're about 19 people now. We will be doubling over the next 12 months, and we're looking for people with experience in all sorts of aspects of quantum computing. Thanks very much.